East Bay was good. Well, I'm getting everything prepared. I just want to tell everybody, I think it's cute. Y'all think I'm still a youth. That's very cute. I thought having a kid would have kept me from having to do these youth Sundays, but obviously not. All right. My uncles used to give me allowance for every youth Sunday I did, so I will be expecting my $12 later. So today's lesson is divine order. I must admit, I'm human, and that's a scary topic for me. You need a very, very deep understanding to understand divine right order. I started to reflect on how I can relate this to my own life. How would I explain divine order to someone unfamiliar with science of mind? Now, I went to Oakland Public School, so my mind started to drift off into other things. Hey, some people laughed, all right, thank you. First it was the Oakland Raiders, then it was Lupita Nyong'o, and then my mind stopped on my relationship with my father. My father and I have an interesting relationship. See, I'm not one of those kids who grew up saying he didn't have a father in his life. Amen. My father has been 100% present throughout my entire life. Yes. In fact, many times I would try to complain to my best friend about how life was so hard. He'd be like, Negro, you got a daddy. Y'all laughing at the Negro part? Because you know something else? All right. We all in the same accord. I know some Oaklanders in here. My name is Luchan Govan Baker III. That means I'm named after two other men. Two very powerful men at that. You know, it's something happens to a young boy when he's named after his father. He automatically believes that whatever his father did, he now has to do. I mean, I might as well, right? I'm short like him. I look like him. If you know me and him, you know that I'm grouchy and sarcastic like him. As far as I was concerned, I am him. There is no difference. Now, Daddy never finished college, and that always bothered him. He realized at 29 that he hadn't accomplished much of the stuff he wanted to do yet, especially being a father. So that's where I came in. Mom and Dad created what Uncle Mwata said would look like the most interesting child you've ever seen. My feelings are hurt, but I gotta talk. But I'm telling you, that hurt my feelings. Now, Daddy was in love with his son. Till this day, I remember the love that Daddy would show me. But as I grew and grew into a boy and started to resemble the same face that he would see in the mirror, his insecurities and his regrets would lash out. Be a man. Stop crying. Any fellas in here ever heard the word before? See, I was 4 years old when my sister Ramai was born. Look at all those smiles. Everybody loves Ramai, right? I was 3 years old, and I was already told to be a man. Now, did Daddy love me any less because Ramai was here? Of course not. But Ramai was allowed to cry. Ramai was allowed to be sensitive. Ramaya was never ever told she can't be a child. Let that set in the next time y'all try to talk mess about the black men in Oakland and what's wrong with us. These regrets and insecurities I spoke of later in life started to seep out when me and Ramiah decided to live with Dad in Pittsburgh. As far as nature was concerned, I'm a preteen, but nature looks at you as a man at that age. My voice is dropping, starting to get a little bit of chest. It wasn't a lot, but you know what I'm saying? Whenever I made a mistake, I would feel Dad's wrath. Little by little, I was shifting the blame from Mom and Dad splitting on Mom to now on my father. Oh, this is the man you married. I see now. Eventually, I moved back in with Mom and I apologized for all the years of me blaming her. The "it was all Dad's fault" mantra was now playing in my subconscious regularly throughout my life. I resented this man for the pain of his own life being expressed on me. Who are you to talk to me like that? Who are you to not allow me to be a child?
Yes, amen. Come on now. Oh, that's good.
As I went on with my adult life, I later had a family of my own. And I was terrified of being a father. But I was determined to show that man that I could be a better father than him. I mean, what else was I going to compete with? He was already intelligent. He was already good looking. He was already successful. This is pretty much all I had to compete with this man in my mind. I remember being angry because my father wouldn't help me financially with something I wanted to do. Yes, I'm a brat. Get over it. I remember speaking to Uncle Kwame one day, and I poured the insults and the anger and the regrets and just all this negative energy toward my dad onto my uncle, who I just knew was going to take my side. Yeah, my last name is Baker, but I'm also an Oliver, homie. You got to feel me. He sat there and listened, and he smiled. And no matter how angry I got, he smiled. And when I was finished, he told me, you know, being a father is a hard job. You don't really get remembered for the things you did. It's always the things you didn't do that fathers get recognized for. I wasn't okay with that answer. Whose side are you on, bruh? Flash forward to today. And just like he said, one day it will be my turn. And now it's my turn. Y'all saw my family. You can't front. I did good, right? Didn't I do good? I had the house. I had me a fly Lexus. I was doing my thing. And just like that, no matter how hard I would try, this thing would not stay together. I'd show up to grandmother's crying and telling her the same thing I would tell Uncle Kwame and my Uncle Mawata. But she was a little bit different. With a poker face, she'd tell me, go in there and meditate. Go in there and treat. Call Silent Unity. She didn't give these little tapes to listen to. And I just, what is it with this family making me pray? But that's what I appreciate about my grandmother. See, she'll never get in that mud with you. She'll look at you while you're in the mud, and she'll tell you how to get out the mud, but she's not about to get in there with you. And I appreciate that. I've heard my whole life how lucky I am to have grown up in this philosophy. I'm open to that thought. Hold on. Only thing different though, is when you've had 33 years of science of mind, you get a little arrogant. You graduate, you become an adult, you start doing adult things and you figure, I don't need that stuff, I learned that already. Obviously I'm in the right philosophy, I've had 33 years of it, what are you telling me I need to meditate for? See, Had I grown up in something else and find this later on in life, I think I would have appreciated it a little more. I've always felt throughout my life, no matter what I did. Some of y'all have seen the YouTube battles. Some of y'all have seen other things. I've done a very, very, very hard job of trying to do everything but this. But for some reason, this is a little off subject, but since we're speaking about divine order, a few days ago, I had a studio appointment set up. I knew I had no business going. My son was hungry, it was cold, he was ready to go to sleep, no one would watch him, and I still said, no, this album got to get finished. And so as I'm driving, I'm feeling more and more guilty. How selfish are you to try to finish this album when you know your boy is hungry? You know he's tired. But I kept driving, and I kept driving. And finally, when I got off the freeway, the car started making a funny noise. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. You cannot make this up. No matter how hard I press on the gas, it would not go past 15 miles per hour. I'm in Deep East Oakland in a bucket trying to go past 15 miles an hour. You know when you're in Oakland, you got to be able to go at least 100. So finally, I get there and I tell him, I said, you know, man, I'm sorry. I keep on pushing these studio dates back, and for all my musicians in here, you know, it's very, very annoying to cancel a studio appointment. This is my third time canceling with this man. So with tears in my eyes, I told him my story, and I just knew he wasn't feeling me. I gave him some money for the day, and he smiled at me and said, listen, homie, I've been meaning to tell you, you've been working really hard, and I think you need to chill for a while. Don't even worry about today. Go home, enjoy your son, and go to sleep. When it's time, it's time. I thanked him. I got in the car, and as soon as he went inside, for some weird reason, the car sound wasn't making that noise anymore. So when I was called and asked to honor my grandmother today, I said, obviously, someone is putting divine order in effect and telling me, get your butt back where you belong, bruh. Now, I know it's a lot of parents in here. On behalf of all the 80s babies from Oakland, I just want to say that Too Short isn't all bad. One of my favorite albums of his is called Get In Where You Fit In. Y'all just think about that for a minute. Back to Daddy. Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Now you see, I talked about the Lexus. I talked about the fly crib I had. But what was missing was God. See, that was all ego. That was all, look at me, Pops, I'm doing it better than you. And then I wonder why it falls apart no matter how hard I would try to keep it together. So those words that Uncle Kwame gave me started to echo off the mind of just how I was mistreating Dad and resenting him. And finally, something said, call your daddy, boy. Now, for all the men who haven't done it yet, having an equal conversation with your father is a very, very frightening thing. To talk to him like you were mad. I called him and I said, listen, man, I have been so angry at you for so long, I don't even know what I'm mad about anymore. This whole time I was trying to prove to you that I was better than you, that I could do all these things way better than you because I was pissed at you, homie. And I poured my heart out, and I poured, and I cried, and all he did was sit and listen. And I said, before I say anything else, thank you. A lot of brothers grow out here without a daddy. Not only did I get my dad didn't have a dad. So you freestyled this. I actually had something to look at. Now, of course, I talked about how I wasn't allowed to cry and everything. Every time I say that, Auntie Juanita laughs because she was like, boy, you used to cry in front of me all the time. I was a crybaby with the Olivers. I couldn't do that with Dad, though. So, of course, I'm crying at this point. I mean, I'm soaking the phone, y'all, and my dad, this dude is so cool. He goes, boy, ain't nobody worried about you. Me and Dad are tight now because of that, because I have a son of my own, because I recognize that struggle that Mom and Dad went through. I'm not over here to blame Mom. I'm not over here to blame Dad. It didn't work out, and that was that. And I realize that now because I have a family of my own. You see, growing up in the 80s, you watch a lot of Disney. And Disney always has this theme called Happily Ever After, right? I've always held on to that happily ever after. But they don't really tell you what happily ever after means. See, I thought it was drama-free. I thought happily ever after meant there ain't no more problems anymore. I didn't know that happily ever after meant your faith and your knowledge of divine order. See, Prince Charming got with Cinderella and they lived happily ever after. They didn't talk about how from time to time he didn't have enough money, so the PG&E would get cut off. They didn't talk about that one time when Cinderella got sick and he had to pray over her daily so she got well. They didn't talk about that time where he tried to be the king and they wouldn't let him because they found out about his past. They didn't talk about that time where Cinderella's stepmother kept on being in their business and trying to break up their relationship. They didn't talk about none of that. You understand me? That's divine order. That's divine happiness. Before I get out of here and cry in the back so y'all don't see me, divine order shows up sometimes in ways that we can't really recognize. See, it may show up in the paper as another black man shot for his music being too loud. It may show up as a black man shot where he's handcuffed at the BART station. See, but we have, as science of mind practitioners, we have to remember that to worry is to doubt God. We get arrogant sometimes watching the news thinking God don't know what he's doing. But when you stay aligned and you know about divine order, you know all you got to do is sit and pray. So in this moment, I'd like all the practitioners to stand. And I'm just giving thanks. I'm giving thanks right now for the glory of God, and I'm knowing that there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life. That life is your life. That is the life of politicians, the life of the people walking around. That is the life of the OPD. That is the life of every single being in this atmosphere. And I'm knowing right now that that life is good. And that we are all just cells in the body of God working to represent this thing that we call life. It's not always pretty. It's not always comfortable. But it's always good, even if we don't know it. And I'm just knowing right now in this moment that the love and the teachings of Reverend Nee exist in all of us. And that we go out and touch lives, and those lives go out and touch lives, and this thing keeps on being paid forward. Hallelujah. It takes rain and sunshine for a flower to grow. And so my roots are grounded. Rain on me, Spirit. Shine on me, Spirit. This is divine order, y'all. And so I'm giving thanks for this moment, knowing that this is God's day. And I release this unto the universal law of God, blessing every treatment in this box, and knowing all is well. Ashe.